Good morning. This is Chris Hammond with .NET New Corporation. I'm here to introduce you to today for the Out with the Old and In with the New SEO and Social webinar presented by Mike Trettenjack and Danny Shepard from Titan SEO. Before we get started with the webinar, however, let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the logistics on how this is going to work. First thing we want to do is we want to make sure that you can hear me. So if you can go ahead and raise your hand in the GoToWebinar interface, I'd appreciate that so that we can confirm that the audio is coming through okay. And assuming that the audio is now coming through okay, we'll also go ahead and have you confirm that you can see the video, the screen here. You should see a tree through a single glass lens with some green grass around it. Now, the way the webinar will actually work, we'll have the two presenters presenting, and after that time, we'll have the ability for you to ask some questions and have some of those questions answered. As we're going through the webinar, if you'd like, you can go ahead and type the questions into the Ask a Question feature in GoToWebinar, and some of those questions might actually get addressed as we're going through the process, but most of those will be addressed at the end of the session. And if they're not addressed at the end of the session, we will make sure to respond to you via email, via the email address you registered for the webinar within a day or two. Now, before we get into the webinar, for those of you who are not familiar with .NET Nuke, we'll tell you a little bit about the company. So .NET Nuke is a software company, and we have a web content management system. This web content management system has a number of different features and capabilities. But what we do is we try to solve a particular problem for businesses of all sizes, and that is business agility. One of the common themes that our customers have brought up to us is the problem of business agility. They struggle to be able to do things faster, more efficiently in order to allow them to scale their business. If you think back to the year 2000 and what the internet was like back then, at the time, the web was very static, but you know over the past 10 years, things have really started to change. Everyone is doing e-commerce online now. The mobile device, mobile tablets, and social media platforms have really expanded and grown in those past 10 years. So you want to have a platform that will allow you to expand with those new tools, the new resources that people are utilizing on the web, and also expand into the future as additional areas of focus come to the web. And that's something that we believe that .NET New can provide, the ability to expand into the active web in the next 5 to 10 years or even further out. Now, a couple of the company highlights. We are the world's #1 web content management system built on the Microsoft ecosystem. We currently have over 2,000 commercial customers, not to mention the 700,000 websites that run on the .NET New platform. We are the largest and most successful open source project in the Microsoft ecosystem. The project has been around for almost 10 years now, and we're well over 1 million community members within that project. Now, the .NET Nuke software comes in 3 editions: the Community Edition, the Professional Edition, and the Enterprise Edition. And you can check out the Compare Editions page on our website for more information about the software. With that, I would like to go ahead and introduce you to Mike Trettenjack and Danny Shepard, and I'll go ahead and turn things over to Mike so he can make his presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Hope everyone's doing well today. Hope everyone's having a good holiday. So we'll get started here. Let me just pop this up here. And again, yeah, I appreciate everyone joining us. So what we want to do today, we're going to be talking about a few different updates. Obviously, the year in review and some changes that happened over the last year, and I'll highlight some other aspects that we're going to be talking about today as well. But before we get there, just to give you a little intro into Titan SEO, we are out of San Diego, California. We're .NET Nuke's official SEO agency, and we have been for the last couple years. We provide primarily SEO, paid search services, and social media marketing services, and we definitely have some advantages that we bring to the table, including some technology that we developed called TitanBot. So feel free to check out our website if you have a chance. A lot of great information there on our technology, and we also provide free analysis to DNN users. So keep that in mind as we're going through the webinar, so feel free to reach out to us at a later time. We started back in 2004, and again, we provide advanced services, and we've been featured in the Inc. 5000 for a few years running now, so we're a growing company as well. And again, we are chosen as DNN's official partner. And we have a variety of clients we work with in many different industries, so some great, you can go to our website to check out some of our case studies and our history. So out with the old and in with the new. The SEO and social webinar that we're going to be providing today is going to talk about the year in review. A lot of changes happened this year with Google primarily, but also in the social media world as well. We'll also talk about site transition. I know it's the new year, and a lot of people are developing new websites, new platforms. So in regards to search, there are a lot of things that you want to keep in place with that transition and keep in mind so that it runs smoothly and you don't get impacted negatively. We're going to talk about owning your brand online, making sure that you own the real estate that is tied to your brand and your company. And then talk about search, conversions, and the overall user experience to help you get more business online. So the first thing we're going to highlight is SEO and the social media changes that happened this year. We'll talk about Google's updates, the Penguin update, which was their big algorithm update. Talk about Google Plus local and how that's changed the web for Google. Talk about Google Shopping and how that changed, and then social updates that happened on a few of the major networks. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Google Penguin update. So what happened? Earlier in the year, April 24th to be exact, was the first Penguin update, and many sites were penalized for a few reasons. Number one, spammy techniques. Obviously, that's been an issue for quite some time, but a huge chunk of websites got hit because of the spamming techniques that were out there. Links removed, so external links coming into websites from bad neighborhoods were removed from Google, and you got impacted negatively there. So that was something that definitely had a huge impact across the web. Terms of service violators. So Google has a variety of terms of services that they want websites to adhere to, and if you weren't, you were probably getting impacted negatively throughout the year. And there were also some sites that shouldn't have been penalized, quite frankly. So we'll talk about some of the ways that you can alleviate those and change some of those issues if you had those, and talk about what to do moving forward. Penguin as well has had many iterations of updates throughout the year. It's been pretty volatile with the changes that they've been making. Just in the last month, they had an update that came through. So you want to stay on top of those. There's many resources out there, including our website, our Twitter feed, our Facebook. We have a lot of information on there so you can stay up to date with the changes that are coming. So feel free to follow us there.
I would also add that both Penguin and the Big Panda update that happened in 2011 both happened early in the year, and it's been a while since that last big update happened. So be on the lookout for another big update, or expect another big update to happen, most likely Q1 or around that time. And you're going to want to pay attention to especially the terms of service of both search engines to make sure you're adhering to everything, because if you get hit by one of these, it can really be detrimental.
So what to do if you were affected, and how to avoid it in the future, at least based on the prior updates. Clean up any terms of service violations that you had, hidden text, sneaky redirects, automatic queries to Google, irrelevant keywords or keyword stuffing. Try to avoid creating multiple pages, subdomains, and whatnot. And don't create pages with overall malicious behavior. And if you aren't aware of all the terms of services, you can just Google it, and you can see what they have outlined on there as far as their TOS. And then avoid doorway pages, anything that's going to try to trick the search engines, you want to make sure to stay away from. And of course, good SEO always wins. Now, before I move on, as we're going along, if anyone has any questions, of course, feel free to put those in the question box, and we will get to those at the end. We want to have some time for questions because I'm sure there's going to be a variety of those. Additional important strategies to consider in regards to the update, and then of course, which we'll get to here in a moment, moving forward with new site transitions. Good content creation, internal and external anchor text or link text throughout the site, good link building, video images, link architecture, continual keyword research, tracking the indexed pages online, which is very important from an SEO perspective. Strategies to avoid. Again, we talked a little bit about these, but just to highlight a few more. Duplicate content. For search engine optimization, you want to make sure that you don't have duplicate content. Search engines, especially with their algorithm update, penalize sites pretty dramatically because of that. And then things like hidden text, link buying, which is huge. You want to make sure you stay away from buying links. Copied content, deleting pages, changing domains without 301 redirects, which we'll talk about for site transition, and any overall black hat or malicious techniques. So one of the major changes that happened this year was the Google Plus local pages. So we'll talk about what changed and how that impacted the overall Google experience. So with the release of Google Plus Local, Google essentially is connecting everyone online within their Google network with local businesses around the world. So they got rid of the Google Places pages and transitioned that to Google Local. It created a much more streamlined experience. It's improved the way that websites and businesses are sharing information across the Google platforms. It's enhanced dramatically local search, which local search has been something that we've seen a huge change over the last year, primarily because of Google Plus Local. So you want to make sure that you're staying on top of your Google Plus local pages and having interaction within those pages. And then the most important thing is Google has integrated that into their search results. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that local results have been populating the search engine system, especially with Google. So you want to make sure if you don't have a Google Plus local page, get one. And if you do, you want to stay active within that network. So we have some examples here of the new streamlined experience. It's got some great imagery, a lot more information, easy reviews to look at and grasp onto. But from a marketing perspective, there's a lot of information here that you can utilize to get in front of your customers and show your customers what your brand and your business is all about. So very big change that happened this year. We've seen really a lot of activity. One of the things are impactful reviews from people, from friends and people in the know, and industry related. So this is a way for you to build up your brand and build up your reputation online. So make sure you take advantage of the reviews on the Google Plus platform. And again, recommendations from those top reviewers and local experts have just added another layer to the overall Google Plus local platform as well. And then one of the active things that we've seen is the overall integration across all the Google networks and any device powered by Google. So everything is just going into integration. And moving forward, we feel like this is even going to be much more impactful. We're going to see more integration within the Google network. And if you get into it sooner rather than later and get some experience with these platforms, it's going to be an advantage for you over your competition. So we'll talk about Google Shopping as well. This was a huge change. Prior to Google Shopping, we had the Merchant Center where your products would be presented in the Google Merchant area. Now they've changed that over. It's a paid search platform now, cost per acquisition platform. There's a lot that's been added here. There's more rich imagery. It's just another avenue for advertisers to leverage the Google network. You can enhance with larger ads along the upper right-hand corner of the search page. I'm sure you guys that have been doing searches and researching online have noticed these be more prominent throughout the Google pages. So that was a pretty significant change that we saw moving forward.
I would also add with the Google Shopping, we have a lot of clients that were initially upset that this was happening because they knew that they were going to have to start to pay for some of that traffic. What's been interesting after this has been live for a little while now is that they're excited that it's happened because not only do they have the ability to control what comes up and what doesn't come up, but the amount of traffic that you can get from Google Shopping and the price that you can get it for, it's extremely low. So it's a huge opportunity. If you're not exploring it and you're already doing pay-per-click, or even if you're not doing pay-per-click, I would definitely check it out because it's a great way to get a lot of business at a low cost per acquisition.
Yeah, and Danny just kind of highlighted a part of how to take advantage of it. Get in as soon as possible. It's only been live for about 9-10 months. So if you can get into it now, it's still in its early stages, you're going to have an advantage. And if you haven't, you can always sign up for it, and I believe Google's still giving a 10% discount off your spend. And it's easy to set up. An example of the product listing ads, you can see here richer information. Which is nice. It shows a lot of images, great descriptions, prices, which is good. So you can have an advantage over the competition. And then along with that, this year Google introduced the Trusted Store badge, which is just great from a reputation standpoint. So if you are on the Google network and you're doing the Google Shopping, you can get a Trusted Store badge, which can help with overall conversions if people see that on the site. So it's a great aspect to have on your site. So try to work to get the Trusted Store badge. And it also can be added to AdWords on your ad extension. So you can see here an example of the Trusted Store badge. So it adds credibility to the overall experience for users. So switching it over a little bit, we're going to talk about the social updates on a few of the major networks in 2012 and tracking your brand and owning your brand online. So we'll talk about some of the changes, the major changes that Facebook had. They had a variety of them this year, but some of the major ones was global brand pages. So what this essentially allows marketers to do is maintain one Facebook URL, but route fans to different versions based on location, based on their likes, and what from a demographic perspective. So it just allows marketers to have much more leverage and options moving forward from a branding perspective on Facebook. So that was a pretty big change. The mobile-only Facebook ads, that was huge as well. So now you can marketers can target only mobile devices. And this is great because there are many different industries that search very different on mobile devices. People are looking at different things with their mobile devices, so you can actually target specific demographics based on that data. And then one of the major changes was Facebook added more targeting options. So now advertisers can target their audience more specifically, including age, gender, gender the user's interested in, relationship status, education, the college or school that they've had, workplace, and that was in addition to all the other options that were already available. Twitter also had some pretty significant changes. Tailored trends was a change that we saw earlier in the year. This allowed Twitter to notify users about important topics that matter to a specific person. So instead of the broad topics that was only important to a few, it can also help you decide what kind of content your followers, your market, your audience would be interested in hearing from you, so you can target them. Twitter cover photos. So very similar to Facebook. Now you can own more of your brand on Twitter. You can have more of a presence. You can show images. You can show contact information, location information. So it just allows you to have more of a grasp on your brand overall on Twitter. And then targeting by interest or username. So they expanded their paid advertising so you have that ability to target a more specific audience on Twitter. Before you could target with a search term, but now you can get much more specific. So that's a pretty neat aspect that Twitter has introduced. And then we'll talk about just a couple changes with LinkedIn and Pinterest that were pretty significant. LinkedIn opened up their company pages. So new pages display much more information, updates, services, and products more prominently on that particular page. There's space for a cover photo as well, similar to Twitter. There's different layouts that you can have for the job posting aspect of LinkedIn, and just the option to overall target your audience with company updates to certain, and you can target certain segments of that audience. So much more options that you have on LinkedIn from a B2B perspective. So definitely try to take advantage of those. We think there's probably going to even be more options that are going to be laid out here coming into the new year, so keep an eye out for the LinkedIn updates. And then Pinterest blew up this year. It's been a huge network this year that has just grown and grown and grown. And they introduced business accounts for brands, which was huge. So make sure you get on Pinterest, especially if you're a consumer product. There's tremendous opportunity there, and it's really easy to set that up as well. So moving forward, we're going to talk about owning your brand online, and you definitely want to make sure that you do that. So the basis of owning your brand online is definitely to have a good SEO campaign set up first. That's going to be really the base of everything moving forward. So make sure you have a good SEO plan for it. You're dominating your specific market. And then also paid search is important as well. You want to try to have some type of presence on the paid search ads on the search engines. Also be very active on social networks and just spread your overall brand online. You want to be on as many networks as possible, not just Facebook. A lot of companies and businesses think that Facebook is all they need, which Facebook is huge. Don't get me wrong. You definitely want to have a presence there. You want to have a good presence there, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. And moving forward, we're going to see a lot more activity coming through with all the other social networks. So try to get into as many as possible. The more you own, the more real estate you have. Even if you're not going to be active right now today on a particular social network, it's still a good idea to get your spot there, get your brand, get your name registered on that particular social network. So when you are ready to be active within that network, it's already going to be set there. You also want to track your brand online with something called a listening campaign. Google Alerts is a great example. This helps you understand when people are talking about you, where they're talking about you, so you can respond and interact with people that are actually mentioning your brand online. There's also some other tools out there that you can use to track your overall brand presence, things like blog posts, Backtype is a huge one, and Social Mention. They're really nice tools, and they're inexpensive. Google Alerts is free, I believe. So definitely track that brand, but not just track and see what's being said about you. Interact, engage with what is being said with those users in those social networks and online as well. And what's also important to consider is these tools can help you understand what influences others so it can be later repeated. That's a great way to send more traffic, subscribers, and spread your overall influence online. Now we're going to get into some web transition tips moving into the new year. I know a lot of you are probably in the process of developing new versions of your websites or thinking about it going into Q1. So we're going to talk about some of the major components you want to have in place from an SEO perspective so that you don't lose any ground moving forward and actually can leverage what's been done in the past with the new platform or new development or design that you guys are generating. So the first thing, and this is really kind of the foundation of SEO with site transitions, are 301 redirects. So what is a 301 redirect? Essentially what it does is it tells a search engine that the page has permanently moved to a new page, to a new location. That is vital. If you don't have the correct 301 redirects in place, a search engine is going to look at your site or look at the new site as that. It's just a brand new site. There wasn't an old site or old platform there, and that can have a tremendous negative impact on you moving forward within the search engines. It can set you back many months, if not longer, as far as getting traction moving forward. So you want to make sure those are in place. If you're working with an SEO firm, a good SEO firm will certainly be aware of that, but it's always good to remind them, hey, what's going on with our 301 redirects? Are these in place? You want to avoid what's called 302, 404, or any other meta redirects. This confuses search engines, and it will certainly have a negative impact moving forward. Now, also keeping in mind with 301 redirects, you want to make sure that those redirects are pointing to similar pages that you had on the old site. You want to make sure that they coincide with those as close as possible so that the relevancy carries over to the new pages. Now, obviously, new sites are going to have a lot of new pages as well. So with that type of scenario, you want to redirect those to the closest possible category page that you can. A mistake that I've seen many times over and over is companies develop a new website and they 301 redirect all their pages to their home page. Well, that's not going to carry over the value that you need throughout the website. It's only going to carry over value to that home page, which isn't enough. You need to make sure that they're connecting to the right page on the new development website. Another consideration are title tags and meta descriptions from the old site to the new site. So when creating new pages on the new site, you want to make sure that you match up your title tags as close as possible. So title tags are what is essentially the topic of your page. They are implemented behind the scenes, and search engines look at title tags to help them determine what a particular page is all about. So moving forward, especially if you've had SEO done in the past, you want to make sure that those title tags are matching as close as possible with the new pages. So this will help with the transition. It will help search engines not lose traction as far as what your pages are all about. And it's going to avoid any confusion from search engine bots. Same thing with meta descriptions. So meta descriptions behind the scenes are a snippet of content that shows up on an actual search result. So if if you've done a search, you're going to see there's a link on the search result and then the content right below it. That's a meta description. That's really important to keep those as similar as possible from a conversion aspect. You want to make sure that when your pages, the new pages on your website, are being pulled up on search results, that they're going to have a similar type of meta description so that users will see what that page is all about. Also, equally important is for search engines, so that they understand that those pages are very similar. The last thing you want to do is develop a brand new website, don't put any meta descriptions, and once search engines start to come by and crawl those particular pages, they're not going to see them. They're not going to know what that page is all about. They're not going to know that that's a similar type content-related page, and they can actually give you, they can ding your page and give you a negative, that can give you a negative impact. So make sure you have those in place prior to the new site launch. Same thing with title tags. I should have talked about that when I started. You want to make sure that all these title tags and meta descriptions are in place. Looks like we just had a little bit of a technical glitch. I'm just going to jump onto a backup computer. One moment, guys. Sorry about that.
Mike, do you need me to make the other, actually I can't make you a presenter. Stephanie, you're going to have to switch over to the other account.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
All right, we can see your screen, Mike. We've got, there we go.
We're back on. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah, except you're echoing through your other microphone.
Okay, one second. Is that better?
No, you're still echoing. So you need to turn off the, if you have two computers on, you got one of them, the mic is active on both, I believe.
Yeah, I'm in another room. Oh, is
There
that
you
better?
go. That's a lot better.
Okay,
That's better.
perfect. Sorry about that, everyone. So we were just talking about the title tags and the meta descriptions, so make sure those are all in place. So now we're going to talk about site architecture and the content that's being generated on the new development website. So in regards to site architecture, you want to try to keep a similar category system in place with the new design as much as possible. Reason being is if you just launch a new website and you don't have at least some type of similar structure from a category perspective in place, that can have a negative impact in regards to the search engines. They want to make sure that they're crawling a site that's not just a brand new website that's completely different in all aspects of that site. So try to make sure that as much as possible you can keep that category system in place. Now obviously your site's going to have new categories and pages that didn't exist. So as long as you can link and connect those to similar areas of the site, you should be all right. And then, again, tying that into the 301 redirects from those pages to the new type of similar pages is important. Then with content transition, keeping the same content in place for the new similar pages is going to have the biggest impact. So you want to try to make sure that that content throughout the site is going to match up as close as possible to the old content. And then on the flip side, if you have duplicate content issues, you're going to want to create as much original content as possible. And you should, if you're not aware, if you have duplicate content, there are definitely ways to figure that out. If you have an SEO team in place, they're going to be able to tell you if you have any of those duplicate content issues. So you want to try to avoid that with the new site. Try to be as original as possible with the content. So let's talk about conversions and the overall user experience. So moving forward for a new site development, you want to make sure that you utilize your analytics for the transition that you've had on the prior site. So one of the things you want to look at is understanding what's working from a conversion perspective, and this can help with understanding visitor flow patterns on the new website. So take that information and try to mimic the good, and the bad you want to make sure that you find other ways around that. Making educated decisions on that site flow can have a dramatic impact on overall conversions and just the overall user experience. So take that analytical information and, again, just try to utilize it on the new version of the website. Having things like clear copy is going to be huge from a visitor's perspective. Clear, concise information and simple information has a much bigger impact on conversions moving forward. And then just making sure that when you are creating a new website, making sure the ease of that site is smooth. This is going to increase sales and conversion rates. And also from a search engine perspective, search engine bots and spiders and crawlers want to make sure that it's easy for them to get through and crawl through websites as well. So not only from a user perspective, you want to have that ease, but you want to have it from a search engine bot perspective as well. One of the other things is from a coding architecture perspective, I just wanted to highlight, you want to make sure that that code is very simple and easy for search engines to crawl through. DNN's a great platform for that, so just keep that in mind moving forward. So just to summarize what we've kind of gone through, you want to make sure that you stay on top of the search engine.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Search Engine Watch, Search Engine Land, some great resources there. You want to stay on top of in continual education on social networks. Stay on top of those, especially going into the new year 2013. We're expecting some dramatic changes continuing within the social networks. So make sure that you're staying on those. Also tracking and building your brand online. Make sure you stay there, tracking your reputation, tracking who's talking about you. Remember to keep that on the forefront. And then the most important thing you can do for the new site launch, test and double check and test again everything that you have on the new development website prior to launch. Remember to keep those 301 redirects in place, and of course continue with good SEO. So what we want to do now is open it up for questions. We wanted to have plenty of time for questions, so I'm going to hand it over to Danny, and he's going to address some of the questions. We have a lot of them here coming through.
All right, thank you, Mike. So one of the questions that we had quite a few times was asking whether or not this presentation would be made available, and it definitely will. It'll be posted onto the .NET Nuke site most likely by tomorrow, and then if you're already following us on Twitter or you're liking us on Facebook, we're going to post a link there as well. We did have a lot of questions, like Mike mentioned, so I'm going to try to answer as many of them as I can. If I don't get to your question, we have committed to answer all of these via email, so we'll definitely do that. All right, so first question is, how many keywords should you put in a title tag, meta keyword, or meta description? So that's a great question, and there are really 3 different answers for that. So I'll start with the title tags. One of the most important considerations for SEO is definitely the title tag, and you want to be very careful to not keyword stuff it. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that if they put a bunch of keywords in the title tag, the search engines will think they're related to that and then they'll rank them. That's definitely not the case. The first thing you want to make sure you do is that the title tag keyword matches what the page is really about. So if you're selling CD players, make sure that page talks about CD players, has CD players in the content, and ideally has other links internally and externally pointing to that page that mention CD players. You also don't want to overdo it and have CD player 5 times in the title tag. Using it just once is plenty. And if you want to have a secondary keyword behind that, that's fine, but you don't want to overdo it. The search engines are very good at understanding if you're trying to spam them, and if you do, it's going to be definitely a negative thing. The next part of the question was for meta tags, meta keyword tags. This is a question that we get a lot, and there's a lot of misconception about meta keywords, their value, and whether or not they're used. About 3 years ago, I think it was in 2009, Matt Cutts, who's one of the senior engineers at Google, came out publicly, in fact there's a video, you can Google it, and said that meta keywords are not used at all, not even a little bit, in their algorithm for determining rankings. So our recommendation is to leave them alone. We have heard that search engines may use them to look for negative keyword stuffing. So you want to be careful if you're going to use them, but my recommendation is just avoid them completely. The last question relates to, or last part of that question relates to meta description. So the meta description is not used for determining how you're going to rank, but it is definitely used once you do rank. So if you rank for a keyword, the content below that title tag that mentions, what that page is about is your meta description typically. So you want to have a strong call to action. Give people a reason to actually click on your ranking rather than the other ones on that page and go to your site. So it can definitely have a good positive impact if you do that well. You also want to make sure that you have unique meta descriptions for each page. Okay, going on to the next question. I have a B2B business without a brick and mortar. Should I use Google+? This is another important consideration when it comes to SEO. So there are two reasons, really, two main reasons that you should use Google+. The first, and in my opinion the most important, is to help with SEO. It's not to have a social media presence. It's not to post things all the time and have people see it. It's actually to help with SEO. And the reason I say that is because Google gives you preference if you're using that. They also use Google+ in what's called their knowledge graph. And what their knowledge graph is it's information that relates to your business, everything that relates to the industry that you're in. If you do a search, for example, for a celebrity, a lot of times on the right-hand side of the page where you'd normally see the paid ads, you actually see ads for that Google+ page. And actually, they're not ads, it's just a posting. So you can get more real estate from it. You can pass on authority. You can have another way to own your brand. So if someone's searching for your brand, your site comes up first. It's great to have Google+ also come up, Twitter come up, Facebook come up. You want to own that presence on the first page. So I'm definitely a proponent and strongly advise you to do that. All right, next question. And this is a question that I'm going to let Stephanie and Chris, if you're still on, answer. Is there an advantage to using the .NET Nuke Pro or Enterprise editions? And before I let you guys answer, I will just say that I've been a part of using both with other clients, and I think there are huge advantages. So I'll let you guys talk to what specifically those are.
Sure. So from an SEO perspective, the SEO features within .NET Nuke currently are found across all the editions, so Community, Enterprise, and Professional Edition. That being said, with the Professional and Enterprise editions, there are additional features, such as the ability to customize the workflow within the HTML module. Within .NET Nuke 7, the release that came out a few weeks ago, we've added version comparison in there as well, so you can see highlighted color highlighted changes, what's changed across versions in content as you're updating content. There are other features, other advantages, such as the granular permissions, really being able to control granularly who or which security roles can do certain things on a website. Within the Community Edition, if you give someone the ability to edit a page, they essentially have the ability to also delete that page. within the professional and enterprise editions, you can restrict that. You can give someone edit access, the ability to place modules on a page, but not be able to delete, not be able to change the skin, not be able to do a number of other things. So those are just a few of the advantages with the professional and enterprise editions of DNN. Definitely check out the version comparison page, the product comparison page on our website for more of those.
Great. Thanks, Chris. All right, next question. Are there some conversion tracking tools that you would recommend using? Does Google Analytics provide me with conversion information? So I guess the answer really depends on what you consider conversion and how you want to track that. So Google Analytics definitely has the ability to track conversions in a multitude of ways. One of the easiest ways to do it is with their conversion tracker. And the way that you set that up, you go into the admin panel, you turn on your e-commerce store. So you say, the question is, do you have an e-commerce store? And then you click yes. That will turn conversion tracking on. And then all you need to do, essentially, is tell Google what page is actually a conversion. So if you have an e-commerce store, that page would be your thank you or your receipt page. And you just put a little snippet of code on there that will relay the information back to Google as far as revenue, if you're tracking revenue, the product price, the shipping price. Pretty much any attribute that you want to be able to track is trackable in Google Analytics. And this is powerful because you can go in there and now see where your revenue is coming from. Is it coming from organic search? Is it coming from paid search? How much of it is it coming from those areas? And then you can determine, look at trends and manipulate keywords and budgets. So if you're not doing it, I definitely recommend doing it. If you're not sure how to do it, you'll probably want to either hire or consult with someone who has experience setting it up. If you have an SEO company, they probably know how to do it. If you have a webmaster, he or she might know how to do it also. Next question, do hidden pages in DNN get indexed in the search engines? That's a really good question. It depends on how they're hidden. If they're hidden from browsers actually going to those pages, then yes, they're definitely hidden from search engines. If you're just talking about attributes, like you have one product and it's small, medium, large, and in 50 different colors, yeah, those are also hidden from search engines. If it's just a page that you think you hid but you're not sure, the easiest way to check is to do what's called a cite command. Take the URL of that page and then put cite : in front of it, no space, then the URL into Google, and if that page pops up and you can click on it, Google knows about it and it's indexed. If it doesn't, most likely not indexed. If you're really not sure or you're paranoid and you don't want it to get indexed, you can use what's called robots text to block that page or that directory or that section of pages. There's a lot of information online that can help you to do that. All right, just going through the questions. Okay, so the next question, having the site subscribe to different directories, is this considered as duplicate content? So it depends what you mean by different directories. If you mean that you're going to have different information on your site that is duplicated, then yes, it's duplicate content. If you mean that you're going to have links pointing to your site from directories that have the same content as your site, that also is going to be considered duplicate content. If you just mean that having different directories point to your site with different links, with different content, definitely not a problem. All right, just reading through a lot of these questions we have already answered. Okay. Is it true that content of the site is only good for 15% of the SEO results and the rest depends on social media and external links? So that's an excellent question. And the answer is really gray because there's no way to know on any particular site whether or not the content is going to have a 15% or a 50% or an 85% impact. What I will say is that content is extremely important, but you can only utilize it so much. For example, if you have a site with 1,000 pages and all 1,000 pages have unique content, but every other site in your industry has the same asset that you have, 1,000 pages of unique content, then it's not going to be very valuable. If you're in an industry where most of the sites have 50 pages of content and you have 1,000, then you have an advantage and it'll actually weigh more than it would otherwise. I would say that in order, content is probably one of the most important. Having unique title tags and meta descriptions is second to that. External links are also important, but starting to become less important, especially with Google cracking down on people who are buying those links. You don't want to buy links, whatever you do. Avoid buying links like the plague. It's the worst thing you can do. You also want to make sure that you're just creating content that people will naturally link to and that they'll read. Both Google and Yahoo and Bing use clickstream data, and clickstream data looks at whether or not people come to your site and actually stay there. If people come, look at it, and leave, that's going to ding you as far as your importance and popularity. And of course, we can't discount social media. It's becoming more and more important, especially Google+ when it comes to SEO, so those are all important considerations. All right, is there a length of text that you should use or stay within in the meta description? There's definitely not a problem with going past what Google is going to actually show in the meta description. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have important things towards the end. So as a general rule of thumb, I would keep the most important content, call to action, whatever you want your customer to see within the first 50 to 100 characters. That's going to show on the top line when they're searching. And if they search for a keyword that's in that meta description, it's also going to get be bolded. Everything after that is really just secondary. So you could have a 500-character meta description. Obviously, it's not all going to show. You're not going to get penalized for it as long as you're not keyword stuffing, but it's not going to really help you either. So keeping it within the realm of the first 100 to 200 is best. All right, here's a great question that we get asked a lot here at Titan SEO. What impact do URL keywords have on current SEO trends? How many keywords? Too much. Back in the early days of SEO, and I'm talking about 10, 12 years ago, you could get away with just having a URL like dvdplayer.com, and that would give you enough relevancy to actually rank for that keyword. Not the case anymore, and it's basically been on a downward trend ever since then, so much so that now I would say it pretty much has absolutely no relevancy at all on your ranking, with one exception. The URL does get bolded when someone searches, so it can have an impact on click-through. So for example, if your website is xyz.com / and you make the page that you want to get ranked for DVD players, call it DVD player, that's probably going to get bolded when someone searches for that, so they're going to be a little more likely to click on that link. So there is a very, very, very small advantage. I would not pay too much attention to it or worry about it too much. And the last part of questions, how many keywords are too much? I would say more than one. Don't overdo it. You want it to be user-friendly too. All right. Just going through the questions. You mentioned listening for social media. Is there listening for SEO? Interesting question. I don't think we've ever been asked that. So there isn't a way to listen for keywords that you rank for, but there is a way to listen for brands and mentions of your site on other sites. One of those tools that you can use is actually Google's. And what that tool will allow you to do is type in any keyword phrase. Most people do their brand name or anything related to their products. And this tool, which is called Google Alerts, will actually let you know if anyone uses that on their site. People use this for social media too, but it's a great tool to see whether or not people are talking about you. It's also a good way, if someone talks about you, to ask them if they'd be willing to add a link to an article that they might have written about you. If I have subdomains, can I redirect those? Should I redirect them to the same URL? All right, so this goes back to the section that we had talking about site transitions. One of the most important things, like Mike mentioned, that you can do with a site transition is to make sure you 301 redirect everything. So that includes subdomains, and you can definitely redirect subdomains. The second part of the question, should I redirect to the same URL? I assume you mean, should I redirect to a subdomain again? That really doesn't matter. You can redirect a subdomain to your root domain. And in fact, unless you have a really good reason to have that subdomain, I would recommend doing exactly that. The more authority that you can use on your root domain, the better. And the subdomains pointing to that will help. Is it better to keep page names the same rather than redirect? That's a tricky question, and I think it really depends on how complex your site is and how big your site is. If you have a small site, let's say it's 20 or 30 pages, I think it's a lot easier and more user-friendly to just keep your page names the same, especially if they're not really long or unrelated page names. If the content's going to stay the same, keep them the same. If you have a large site and it's going to be difficult to do that, then I would say redirect them. From an SEO perspective, it does not matter at all. A 301 redirect is as good as gold to a search engine. They're going to act like that page never changed. The URL never changed. You're going to get all of the authority. It's going to stay indexed as long as other things don't change. If you remove content, if you change your title tag, obviously those can have adverse effects. But otherwise, you should be fine. All right, we're going to make this the last question because we're running out of time, but we definitely promised to get to all of the other questions. There are a lot of them. How will I know if my site has been penalized by an update like Penguin or Panda? That's an easy thing to see if you already had traffic. So if you had traffic coming in organically to your site, go into your analytics, whether you're using Google Analytics or another tool, drill down to organic traffic and look to see if that's dropped. Now, the first Panda update was back in 2011, February. So if you see a big drop there, it's really easy to determine that you were affected negatively by Panda. And Penguin was April 24th of this year. There have been a lot of iterations and changes since then. I think Panda's on like 22, or it might even be higher than that now. So it's possible that just a slight change in their filtering or the way that they look at the data could have caught you and caused you to lose your rankings and be affected. So if you're unsure, probably the best thing to do is to talk to an SEO company. We're happy to look at it. We do free evaluations for anyone who uses .NET Nuke. So give us a call, shoot us an email, let us know that you want an evaluation. We'll look at analytics. We'll look at your site. We'll do some tests. We'll run our Titan bot through your site to see what's good and what's bad, and we can pretty quickly tell you whether or not you've been affected. So that's pretty much everything for all the questions. Definitely appreciate all of you attending, and look forward to seeing you again in another webinar. Thank you.